So as Ruth said, my name is Dusty. I am the spiritual director of this amazing community. And I do know that we have a few visitors this morning for the first time. So let's please welcome them. So I just thank you for being here with us this morning. And I also thank everybody at home who has invited us into your home through the technology of live streaming. Thank you very much for allowing us to be a part of your morning today. And I thank everyone here that's been here before, whether that's one time or 101 times. I love this community and I love that you're here. We are, for those of you who don't know, part of a larger organization called Centers for Spiritual Living. We believe that there is one God, and that God is a loving, benevolent God that is within us and surrounding us, not off on some cloud someplace, doling out punishment and favors at whim, but actually benevolent and always with us and always ready, willing, and able to support us and guide us and guard us. We believe that this power and presence that we call God is a creative power and presence. In the beginning was the Word, and God created everything out of itself, yes? And since we were created in its image and likeness, then we have that same ability within us to create. And we actually do. The things that we feel, the things that we say, the things that we think, the things that we believe all have a creative power. And so if we've created this life that we're living right now and we love it, great, continue to do more of the same. If you're not so happy with it, then guess what? You are the one that created it and you are the one that can recreate it. And so we believe in this ability, and we come together many days out of the week to support each other as we maneuver or make our way through this thing called life and support each other on our spiritual path. So I'm really grateful that you're all here today, and welcome to those of you that are visiting for the first time.
And today's reading is from Dr. Ernest Holmes. Y'all ever heard of him? And he says, did you ever stop to think that you're a spiritual and mental broadcasting station? And that messages are going out from you in all directions, perhaps even while you are asleep. Messages that have an influence on your environment and the people around you. And since everything moves in circles, the messages you broadcast will come back to you. It is fascinating to think that we are both broadcasting and receiving sets. It will be even more wonderful when we learn to broadcast only the kind of messages that we wish to receive in return.
So welcome to those of you who may have just arrived in the sanctuary. The theme for the month of July has been Revealing Wholeness. And my talk title today is You Are a Spiritual Broadcast Station. You own that? All right, good. So this, today, sitting here, we would probably think about broadcasting as the distribution of audio or video content dispersed over large audiences via electronic mass communication mediums. But it hasn't always been so. The term broadcast and broadcasting actually evolved from its original use as the agricultural method of sowing seeds across a field by broadly casting them out. Now, before the time of modern farm equipment, which now sows in really precise measured rows, a farmer had to sow these seeds by hand. And so what they would do is they would take this bag of seeds and they would put it up over their shoulder, And then as they walked the fields, they would reach into this bag and they would take out a handful of seeds and they would scatter it out over the soil. Now, as you can imagine, the farmer couldn't really control precisely where those seeds would fall. Now, this is spoken about brilliantly in the parable of the sower, one of the kingdom of heaven parables in which Jesus uses everyday activities to teach about spiritual truth. In the case of the kingdom of heaven parables, within the parables, he talks about what the kingdom of heaven is. It always starts out like, the kingdom of heaven is like, and then he goes on with it. So the parable of the sower says, behold, a sower went forth to sow. And when he sowed, some seeds fell by the wayside, and the fowl came and devoured them. Some fell upon stony places where they had not much earth. And forthwith they sprung up because they had no depth of earth. And when the sun was up, they were scorched. And because they had no root, they withered away. And some fell among the thorns, and the thorns sprung up and choked them. But others fell into good soil and brought forth fruit, some 100-fold, some 60-fold, some 30-fold. Who hath ears to hear, let him hear. Now, this is the picture that this parable presents to us. Now, at the time, it was a very familiar picture of a very familiar activity. Not so much. So while it's a great story, it might not necessarily apply to our everyday lives. Now, here at the Triangle Center for Spiritual Living, we believe that the stories and the parables of the Bible are really meant to transcend all space and time. And so when we read them or we talk about them, we look for a non-literal meaning. We look for a metaphysical meaning, a higher meaning, one that really speaks to us right here and now today. Metaphysically, what is meant by the kingdom of heaven is the spiritual or the immaterial world, our consciousness. God or the universe or wisdom itself is like the sower. And the seeds are the spiritual truths that are constantly being broadcasted all of the time, everywhere. They are continually falling onto our consciousness, excuse me, like grain does on that field, like those seeds do on that soil. Now, what our consciousness individually and collectively does with those seeds is determined by the nature of our mind, by the nature of our consciousness. Our minds or our consciousness is like the soil in this parable. Different minds have different compositions. They have a different quality. They have different states of spiritual development. So in the parable, the different types of soil and their ability to get varying degrees of yield represent our varying consciousnesses and our varying ability to be able to receive the truths of life. Make sense? So in the first part of the parable, the seeds fall by the wayside. And there along that wayside, they really have no ability to take root, and the fowls of the air come and devour them. Now, this represents people who are hard-surfaced, people who generally refuse to accept anything new, people who feel like they have nothing left to learn, people who refuse to let go of their comfortable opinions or their old worn-out ideas and thoughts and ways of being. This also represents negative people who have this big dark cloud that surrounds them, who are always saying no and never saying yes to anything. Now, in the second part of the parable, Jesus says that some of the seeds fall upon stony ground where there was not much earth. So when the plants sprung up, but they sprung up without any real deep root system. And when the sun came up, they were scorched and they withered away. Now this represents the people who have minds that are really quite enthusiastic. So they readily agree to any positive or good idea, but they can't follow through. They are unable to really be able to embody the idea or embody the truth in their everyday lives. Their roots do not go deep enough into spiritual reality. They are not grounded in the truth of who and what we really are. In the third part of the parable, some of the seeds fall upon thorns, and the thorns spring up to choke them. Sometimes literally just doesn't work. So this parable actually illustrates the minds that do not keep up in their daily practice of mental treatment or of prayer work in order to keep itself in a healthy, constructive, and positive condition. If we are not well grounded in spiritual law and do not have confidence in our ability to choose, then differing ideas or differing thoughts in our minds will actually quarrel. They'll quarrel within our minds, and the one that wins is in most cases the one with the most fear behind it. That fear will actually get the better of our faith, and it will choke out those seeds, those good seeds. The bottom line is that we cannot think of two opposing ideas at the same time. We cannot thrive in a house that is divided. In the fourth part of the parable, the seeds fall upon good, cultivated soil, and they bring forth fruit. Now, the condition of the soil determines the productivity of the seed itself. The soil must first be right. And if the soil is right, then the seed will fall upon it and it will yield its fullest potential. Now, the seed is constant. The soil is variable. Spiritual truths are constant. Our consciousness is variable. In his book, Learn to Live, Irvin Seal says, the parable of the sower stresses the fact that different kinds of soil make different responses to the same seed in order to show us that different kinds of minds respond differently to the truth. Putting it more precisely, certain soils allow the seed to express its potentialities more fully than others. The analogy to our lives is then that human beings make different and variable responses to the truth of life. Every human mind has its history, its conditioning, its training. These furnish the light by which the mind sees the world. So the invitation today, this is hard work. The invitation today is to cultivate the soil of our consciousness, to be willing to look within, to do the inner work that is necessary to cultivate a consciousness that is ready to receive the truth. Be willing to let our consciousness be broken up, to let go of old thoughts and to welcome in new thoughts, to be willing to root out old, worn out ideas and patterns and ways of being that no longer work for us. Be willing to put up a no trespassing sign to negativity, to inferiority, to guilt, to resentment, to blame, and to prejudice. Be willing to listen for and to the whispering of the inspiration that is always being broadcasted by God, by the universe. Be willing to develop a flexibility of mind and to create a healthy and vibrant expectancy. And expectancy that says, I am to receive the peace, the joy, the love, the creativity, the abundance, and the wisdom that is always being sowed by God or by life itself, always. Then, having made our soil ready, first and foremost, when the Word of God, when those truths of life fall upon our soil, fall upon our consciousness, then they will spring up and they will bear fruit. This, then, is the receiving aspect of being a broadcast station. In the reading, Ernest Holmes said we are both receiving and broadcasting. He asks, did you ever stop to think that you are a spiritual and mental broadcasting station and that messages are going out from you in all directions, perhaps even while you're sleeping? Messages that have an influence on your environment and the people around you? So this, then, is the other aspect of being a broadcast station, that of broadcasting itself. We are all broadcast stations, whether we know it or not. Our thoughts, feelings, emotions, faith, and fears tend to have an impact. Tend to have an impact on our own lives, tend to have an impact on the people around us, so much so that they actually shape our own personal environment. There is a place where our physical bodies begin and where they leave off, but our minds, our consciousness do not have that limitation. Our thoughts penetrate everything. In essence, we are constantly sending, constantly receiving, constantly impacting our own experience and the experience of others in our area, in our lives, by what we are broadcasting. Now, even more important than this material body, which we all think is pretty important, it does a lot of really good things for us, right? So, but even more important than this material being that we are is the truth that we are vibrational beings. Vibrational beings. When someone experiences us, they see us with their eyes, they hear us with their ears, but the truth is that we are always presenting ourselves to others, we are always presenting ourselves to the universe in a much more emphatic way than what can simply be understood through our sight or through our hearing. We are a vibrational transmitter. We are a spiritual broadcast station, and we are broadcasting our signal every single moment of every single day. Always. In every arena. My guess is that everyone here this morning can think about a time in which you walked into a room. Maybe it was the first time you walked into this room. But you can think about a time that you walked to a room, and perhaps you could immediately sense that something was amiss, that something was wrong. Or maybe you walked into a room and you immediately experienced being wrapped up in a blanket of love and joy. I see people smiling. Now, either way, the reason that this happens is that because all of us are surrounded by our own mental atmosphere. And that consists of what is thought, felt, or believed in every moment by every individual in that room. If a person's mind is filled with fear, anger, animosity, or resent, we will feel it, even if we don't have a conversation with that person. If that person with fear, anger, and animosity and resentment is in that room, then that fear, anger, animosity, and resentment will actually arouse that same feeling in other people. It will arouse their attention because it is attracted by the fear, anger, animosity, and resentment that already lives within that person. So this is always flowing out of us, and it is always returning back into us. One will really accentuate the other. Now, the good news is that if we are surrounded by people whose minds are filled with fear, anger, animosity, and resentment, and we don't have any of that within us, then we will not tune into those feelings, thoughts, and beliefs. Conversely, a person whose thoughts are filled with faith, joy, love, and peace, they will radiate those qualities, those values outwardly. A person whose thought is filled with ideas of success, who has faith and confidence in himself or herself, will actually tune into all of the other successful thoughts that are being thought around them. A person who confidently expects good things to happen, who expects to find joy and harmony in all of the experiences of their life, will not only be broadcasting those qualities and values outwardly, but they will also be receiving them in return. This is the way that it works. And the good news is that we have a choice in the matter. We have dominion over our thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. We can choose them. Every feeling, thought, and belief has its own particular vibrational frequency. Abraham says, in the same way, you cannot set your radio tuner to 98.6 and receive songs playing on 101 FM. You must set your own vibrational tuner to one of well-being. We are vibrational beings. We are constantly broadcasting the particular vibrational frequency of our thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. We broadcast these vibrations out into that creative law. and those the things that are on in alignment with those vibrations will come back to us. Will come back to us. We attract to ourselves the same vibrational level that we have tuned into. So it's just much like a radio. You tune it into the particular station that you want, and that's what you get. You won't get anything else. So we have to be mindful of the stations that we're tuning into, yes? So how then do we broadcast and therefore receive all that our hearts and our souls desire? So the invitation is to first and foremost monitor our thinking, to make the choice to think on the affirmative side of life, to accentuate the positive and eliminate the negative. In doing this, we are making the choice to send out and receive only positive things into our lives. Another invitation is to not only stay away from negative people and events, but to actually surround yourself with positive, like-minded people that are creating really wonderful experiences for themselves. This center is a wonderful place and space to do that. The invitation is to monitor the time that we spend watching negative things on television, to monitor the time that we spend reading negative comments on Facebook. Oh, I got a little wave back there. What we place our attention upon, right? What we place our attention upon. So if we're placing our attention upon those negative things on TV, those negative things on Facebook, we tend to become a vibrational match of those things. And when we are a vibrational match of those things, what happens? We invite more of it into our lives. We are a spiritual broadcast station. The invitation is to begin to expect only good to show up in your life. To just expect that. Be grateful for what we have now and be grateful for what we expect in the future. Gratitude has such a high vibrational frequency, and what it really does is it attracts more to be grateful about. So when we are filled with gratitude for the life that we already have, we invite more good into our lives. The invitation is to cultivate an attitude of awe and wonder. This thing called life is really an amazing gift. And the more consistently we reflect on it and all of its wonder and awe, then the more blessed we will be by the vibrational level that we are broadcasting. So when we are broadcasting from a bright vibrational level that is steeped in wonder and awe, can you imagine how blessed we would be, how we would bless everyone else in our path, how we could ultimately transform the world? The invitation is to tune our minds, our consciousness into the divine mind of God. God, as first cause, was the original first broadcast station. And God is constantly sending out, broadcasting its vibration out to all of its creation. To the degree that we tune our radio dial into the vibrational level, the vibrational frequency of the original broadcast station, then we will demonstrate God's loving presence in our own lives, which will then spill out ultimately throughout the world. The invitation is to take time each day to get quiet and to turn within, and to know beyond a shadow of a doubt that as we do that, we are aligning with the vibrational frequency of God. We are drawing into our own souls the essence of everything that God is. Its goodness, its beauty, its creativity, its abundance, its joy, its love, its peace. The invitation is for each of us to draw into our own experience of life the realization of the power and presence of God that is within us and surrounding us, and that we would do that until our whole being responds. And when we do that, somebody stop me. When we do that, we begin to broadcast love and healing and peace. And this is what Karen's saying about. This is that bridge. This is what will transform and change the world. But it has to start within each and every single one of us, individually and collectively. Ernest Holmes says, first of all, we must be sure that we are right inside. And then learn to trust ourselves because we have faith in God. We must learn to get our own broadcast station in order. We must retune our own receiving set. It may take time and effort, but the goal we seek is worth the journey. And the prize that is offered is worthy of our effort. Well, wouldn't you agree? Now, the bottom line is that we are all both receivers and broadcasting stations. We broadcast into that creative law who we believe we are and what we believe about the world. And the creative law simply says yes. It simply says yes, and it returns to us an exact match of that which we broadcasted out. We receive goodness. We receive the goodness, the peace, the joy, the creativity, the love of the original broadcast station to the degree that we tune into that frequency. And to do that, we have to get quiet. We can tune our radio dial to any station that we want to any station that we choose. By consciously tuning into the things that are loving, kind, inclusive, and joyous, we vibrate at that level and we actually activate that frequency in our lives. So please repeat after me. I am a spiritual broadcast station. I am the vibrational frequency of love and light. Today, I vow to broadcast that message to the world. I vow to broadcast that message to the world. And so it is. And so it is. Please turn within. Turning in, I recognize that one life, that one love, that one heart, that one mind, that one creative energy back of everything that there is. I call this power and presence God, and I know that it is everywhere at all times, that there is no spot where God is not. I know that it is benevolent. I know that it is everywhere at all times, energy with no circumference and points of center everywhere. I know that I am one of those points of center, that I was created by it in its image and likeness, that right where I am, God is, that it breathes me, it supports me, it guides me. And just as I know that this is my truth, I know that it is true for each and every single person here this morning and each and every single person watching us at home. I know that each of us is God's ambassador on the planet, an adjunct spiritual broadcast station imbued with everything that we need to represent the original broadcast station. And so I claim for each of us today that there is a way that we can powerfully step into this. letting loose any thoughts of some responsibility, the heaviness of some responsibility, knowing that it is a joy, a privilege, that we get to be part of the solution, part of bringing peace to the entire world, part of creating a world that works for everyone. And we do this by making sure that who we are as a receiver and who we are as a broadcaster is clean, is in alignment with the truth of who we are, is right inside, that the soil of our consciousness is prepared and ready, that we are willing to do whatever it takes to prepare it. I claim ease and grace for us around this, knowing that we support each other as we do so. And I'm so grateful to know this truth and to speak these words. So grateful for the power of prayer, knowing that these words are loosed into a law that only ever says yes. That my words are clothed in form even as they are spoken, and so I speak them and I release them with love and gratitude and full expectation of their manifestation, letting go and letting God be God. And I invite each of us to anchor this prayer for ourselves and for each other simply by saying, "And so it is." Amen. Thank you all.